All right, today's goal is to draw on a piece of paper the layout of all the studs for a wall that is 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall. So we're going to need a piece of paper. It would be nice to have a architectural ruler because we're going to use the 3/4 inch scale for today, where 3/4 of an inch is equal to 1 foot in real life. But if you don't have that, that's okay. You can use a ruler like this as well. And I'll show you. This is a nice ruler. It's got 16 sixteenths measured off. So every inch is broken into 16 little pieces. Okay, I had some marks on there that won't get off. Okay, so what we need to do is set up our ruler, our paper, so that we have a wall that is pretty much square or parallel to the paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line across the bottom. Now I don't need to make it too wide because my wall is only 8 feet wide. So how far, if we're using 3/4 of an inch as 1 foot, how far is 8 feet? Well, so like I said, 1 foot is 3/4 of an inch. Another 3/4 of an inch, 1, 2/4, 3/4, is 2 feet. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 3 feet. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 is 4 feet. So at 3 inches, we know that 3 inches, I'll write that over here just so I don't forget, up at the top. 3 inches is equal to 4 feet. Okay? If you can see that or not, but that's for me. And so actually what I can do is double that ratio. And so if I have 6 inches, that's going to be 8 feet. So what I've done here is I've lined up my ruler along the bottom of my paper. This is going to let me draw a line that's parallel to the bottom of the paper. And to do that, I'm going to first measure from the edge of the paper over here a couple inches, and that's where I'm going to start. And then I need to go 6 inches from there to get my 8 feet. So there's 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches. Remember, that's 4 feet in real life. 1, 2, 3. So that makes sense that my 8, since I started at 2, is going to be a total of 6 inches. Okay? And so there's my line. That's going to be the bottom of my wall. Now I want to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to kind of come up here for now and just put a little mark at 2 inches. So it's going to kind of know where to try to be parallel with the side of the paper like this. Now I only need to be 6 inches high because again, 6 inches is 8 feet. Okay, so I've lined up on my mark here, and I've lined up on my mark up here, and I'm going to go all the way to this point right there to draw the side of my wall. That's going to be 6 inches, which is going to be equal to 8 feet. Now I can come up here and I can measure 6 inches across, but I might want to do it this way first. So again, let's see, this was 8 inches this way. So let's do the same thing up here. So from the side of the paper, you can see over here, I'm going to measure 8 inches over here. Okay, that's going to allow me to make my ruler line up like that. And that should keep my side of my wall parallel with the side of my paper. So again, draw that in up to there. That's a little off up here, but that's close for what we're doing today. Now I went too far to the top there. So what I need to do is make sure I only measure 6 inches up. So I should have stopped right about there. Okay, I'm gonna look at it this way to make sure I'm in line. Yeah, it was a little long because my eyes weren't straight in line with this line. So that's where that should be. Do the same thing here. Get my ruler on the edge. Now, if your ruler has a 0 on it, that's really where you should be starting to measure from, not where your edge of your ruler is. And then I can connect these two lines to make my top plate across the top. Okay, and then I'm going to erase some of the extra that I have here. I went a little too far when I drew it. I went a little too far here. Just clean it up and make a nice, should be a perfect square. So look at that. Now my camera's a little angled, but that should be a perfect square. And for the most part, the walls are parallel to the edges of the paper. All right, now what we're going to do is lay out our studs so that they're 16 inch on center, because that's generally what we do, so that every 3 studs is 4 feet. So how do we do that? Well, on the ruler like this, what was kind of neat, remember I said this ruler is measured off in 16ths of an inch. So when we go to 3/4, that is only 12 marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, guess what? That's our 1 foot mark. And how many inches are in 1 foot? Everyone says 12 inches. So this tells us that every one of these marks on this ruler is 1 inch. So if I want my studs to be 16 inches on center, then I need to measure 16 inches from this side. So that's 1 inch. So I put my 1 inch mark right there in line with that line. And then I mark here for my first stud. Yeah. It's edge to center. So I'm really going to make my stud like that. Okay. And that's, I mean, that's not that important, but that's how they do it. Because when they went to drywall this or sheet it with plywood on the outside, you want the plywood to come all the way to the edge here. So this first one's going to be a little bit closer than my next one. So 16 inches on center would have been here and here, but I moved it over just a half a board. So it goes there. So anyway, I'm going to draw in a stud, and my stud is about 2 inches wide. So that's 1/8 or 2/16 on my ruler. So there's my first stud. Now this is actually a stud here on the end as well. And we're not going to worry about right now making the studs for corners. You really would have more studs here depending on how this wall fits into the house, so that the drywallers and the sheathing would be, well, we would probably do the sheathing if we're the framers, would be able to have a place to nail everything. Okay, this one looks a little thick than what it should be, so I'm just gonna get a little bit closer with my line. Again, I'm being a little bit more perfect than we need to be. There we go. That's a little better. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh my goodness, that's not better. Let's try that again. Okay. All right, and then again, we're going to go 16 inches on center. Well, keep in mind that 16 inches on center is also from right side. So from center board to center board would be 16 inches on center, but also from right side of the board to right side of this board would be 16 inches on center. So that's what I'm going to do. But before I finish doing that, I know I'm going to have a sole plate down here. So I'm going to draw that in first, because otherwise I'm making my studs too long. So my sole plate goes there. Oh, pencil point broke, so there. Sole plate goes all the way across, and see, you can see now I got to erase these little marks here. because my studs really don't go down there because my sole plate's going to go all the way across the bottom. And I really should do the same thing to the top. And this is the top of my board, so I want my sole plate, I'm sorry, my top plate. That's sometimes, the other one's sometimes called the bottom plate. This is called the top plate. And a lot of times we put a double top plate. So we'll do that on this drawing as well. And so again, you can see I got too much lines here for my stud, both studs. So I'm gonna have to make some corrections here. So it would have been better to do those top plates, and actually this one's going to be short so that I can tie it in with the top plate from the other wall. And so over here the same thing, about 1/4 of an inch, which would be 4 inches in real life, so that a 2x4 could fit across there. All right. And now we'll continue to draw our studs all the way across. So it's going to be a little extra work because we're going to put our window in here later. But you want to make sure all your studs are 16 inches on center, or 16 from edge to edge. So I'm going to do edge here, and then 2 inches because I'm using 2x4s for my studs. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. 1, 2, and then another 16 inches. Remember, each one of these is an inch, so that's 8 inches, 16 inches. And then the other side of my stud will be here, and then here. And that's all we need before we run out. But of course we can make this last one a stud as well. So that's what I'm going to do, is lay that out. And I'm going to lay that out up here as well. So again, right side of the board, right side of this board, 2 inches for width of the board. Every inch is 16 inches. Okay. And they should line up and make a nice stud like this. Now I'm going to leave those marks there. I'm not going to draw all the studs in because I want to put in a window right in the middle of this wall. So right in the middle of this wall, I want a window. So let's do that. Oh, I forgot to finish out my stud over here. Okay. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so before we draw in these 3 studs, let's figure out where our window is going to go. So it's going to go right in the middle. And remember, this is an 8-foot wall, which is 6 inches. See that? And so right in the middle is 3 inches, or in real life, that would be 4 feet. And we're going to do the same thing up here. 3 feet, or 3 inches would be 4 feet. And so you can kind of see really lightly, that's the center of our wall. Okay. That's the center of our wall. And that's going to be the center of our window. Our window is supposed to be 32 inches wide, rough opening, 42 inches high, and it's going to be 30 inches from the bottom of the wall. So here's the bottom of our wall, our sole plate. We got to go 30 inches up. Well, keep in mind that this was 16 inches. So keep in mind this is 12 inches, 1 foot. This would be 2 feet, or 24. So 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So right here, 1 inch, 7/8 is going to be our 30 inches high. So let's mark that. We'll do it in a couple places from the bottom. So run from the bottom of our board to 1 inch, 7/8 we'll do the same thing over here. 1 inch and 7/8. Okay, and that's going to be the bottom of our window. Just really lightly draw it in there because some of this we're going to have to, it's a little crooked for some reason, but it looks good enough. Okay, and then we want it to be 48 inches high, which is also 4 feet. So remember, 3 inches was 4 feet. So we'll come in here and we'll draw our 3 inches. I wish I could really look at the edge of my ruler when I'm doing this. Maybe I should turn this around and do it like this. Maybe that'll make it easier. And I think that's why I was a little off with this line. Yeah, see how that's a little high? That's why that was a little crooked. Turn your ruler so you can get a good look at it. You might have to read the numbers upside down, but that's going to be better than drawing things a little off. Okay, so this is the top of our window. Again, don't have to write it too because we're going to erase some of this. Now it's going to be 32 inches wide. So that's 16 inches. Half of 32 is 16. So from the middle of the wall, we've got to go 16 inches out. So remember, 1 inch is 16 inches. We did the 16 inches on center. So from the center, the light mark that we made, we're going to go out here 1 inch. We'll go out here 1 inch. Again, I'm going to turn this around so I can see it a little bit better. There's 1 inch. See, and there's 1 inch. I'm going to come down here, do the same thing. And come up here and do the same thing. And then that way I can draw a nice straight line, kind of a line of best fit through those 3, like that. And that should be parallel to the studs, parallel to the paper. There we go. All right, close enough. So that's our window opening that our window will go in, and we're going to frame that up with 2x material. So down here at the bottom, we're going to have a board like that. Our sill, our rough sill, because it's part of the rough opening sill. A window is going to have a sill, but sometimes they have a finished sill if it's in a nice house or any house. Up here, I really want to have a little bit beefier header. So I'm going to make this 8 inches. That's going to be a 2x8. So let me turn this sideways so you guys can see. So again, each one of these marks is 1 inch. So you can start at this top here, but I'm going to start at 1. And I'm going to count how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which that's a ½ inch. So right there. And come down here and do the same thing. And that way I can have a nice 2x8 header. Okay. Now this is going to be our trimmer, or our jack stud. So this is going to come out here. This is going to be part of the header. And then we're going to have a jack stud. It's going to run right alongside, all the way down to there. And it's going to be, finish it off like that. Okay? So that's a jack stud or a trimmer, as we learned last class. This is actually going to be a jack stud and a trimmer also, and that's going to support our header. So our header is going to rest on top of that. So right now my drawing is upside down. This is the top of the window. And those jack studs or trimmer studs are going to hold that header and supply any weight transfer out and about. Now you still need a full stud all the way up. around the door or around the window. So that's going to be this one. It's going to go all the way up. And then this side of it is going to show up just there. It's going to be touching the other stud down there, but turn this around just so you guys can see it a little better. Except see if I can draw it left-handed. And so that stud goes all the way up to the top plates. Okay. So now I've got my header, my jack stud or trimmer, my sill. These lines can be erased as that's part of my sill. Now, I like to see the sill also supported underneath. Some people just nail that in, and that's fine because there's not a lot of weight on that. But you also sometimes see it where you have a cripple stud right here. So because this true cripple stud is going to be right there, I think we're fine just putting this true cripple stud that's 16 inches on center with our other studs right there. I'm lining up here and drawing in my studs, but they're my cripple studs, so they only go to the header and the sill plate. There they are. Okay. They don't go where the window opening is. This is the window. So I'm going to turn this back up so it's facing the right way. This is my window. Rough opening window. And again, it's going to be 32 inches. We can get rid of this center line now. "32" wide. So I can draw little arrows to show that that is that measurement there. And it is 48 inches tall. So I'm going to write 48 inches with our double quotation marks up to the header board and down to the sill plate. And then this is our cripple studs. So right here to here, draw in that cripple stud, draw a cripple stud up at here, then do the other side of the cripple stud. And we've already got a cripple stud here, it looks like, but we don't have one up here, so let's draw one in here. Okay. There's our cripple, there's our wall. Again, we want to put in our dimensions. So this is 8 feet from one side of the wall. Put a dimension little line there. To other side of the wall. A little arrow and a dimension line. And it is 8 feet tall as well. So all the way up to there. Because that one header stud, oops, you guys can't see it. That one header stud doesn't go all the way out, so we can tie in the header stud, header, top plate. We can tie that top plate in from the other wall when this makes a corner. Okay, and an arrow down here to the bottom of the sole. Okay, what dimensions do we want? Maybe a 16 inches in here, 16 inches on center. Just so they know, that's what we did. Most walls nowadays are 16 inches on center. The studs are 16 inches on center. Okay, that's what you got to do today. Hopefully you guys can make that drawing, take a picture of it, and submit it on this assignment, or if you're done in class, maybe you can show it to me on your camera, and I can give you points for it. That's it. So one thing before I go is to add the fact that the reason this first stud was 16 inches from edge to center was so that when the drywallers or the sheathing people, when they put that 4 foot or if they put it this way, they put the 4-foot sheet this way, you can see that this 3 inches is 4 feet, ends up right in the center of that stud. So they can put that, you know, piece of plywood or drywall, of course they would, and it would fit right here, all the way down to the outside of the wall, all the way down, and then they would cut this out so that this was open. But the drywall or the sheathing would be like that. You put a 4 by 8 foot sheet there, and you'd have a 4 by 8 foot sheet here as well. See that? Perfect. Right to the outside of the wall, 4 feet. And so you'd have another sheet here. So 2 sheets of plywood would cover up that wall. Cut this a little bit out here for the window, and it matches up with our studs, so we can, all the edges are nailed down securely. We can nail them down on these studs as well, and make sure that the sheathing and or the drywall on the inside is fixed appropriately to the wall, to the studs.